You mentioned KLL, but on the Kickstarter, there's HID.io. What is that compared to KLL? Is it just another way to program this keyboard? Does it expand beyond? I'm not sure. I just saw it 6 times in one paragraph.
Yep.
So I think it's important.
Yeah. So HID.io is not a new thing in terms of... I've been talking about it for a long time. On Desk Authority, I have a post on HID.io that's probably 4 years old. And so I'll back up a step. HID.io and KLL are totally different things. They interface with each other, but they're purposely separate. HID.io is a way for input devices to talk with both your computer as well as other input devices. So for those of you that actually write firmware, for keyboard firmware, and kind of understand how these things work, one of the biggest frustrations you have is that, on a Mac, you don't know where like your Windows key should be because your Command and Alt they're all swapped. And the reason why you have to like do that manually in firmware, have like dip switches, is because the keyboard has no way of knowing which OS it's plugged into. This is like a trivial thing for the keyboard to do, but it has no concept. It could be plugged into a phone. It could be plugged into like a cat. It doesn't know what's on the other end. As long as there's power coming out of it, it's gonna like send stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's the USB. So this is like a huge frustration, and it's even a lot of this actually came out of my frustrations while building the Infinity Ergodox. So the Infinity Ergodox, I spent all this effort in building a hot pluggable interconnect that used standard cables, and I put all this work into it, and it was to make sure that it was convenient, so you could like plug a bunch of them in and do these things. But why do you have to do this? Like, why can't you just plug in 2 keyboards to your computer and just use them that way? Well, one, OSs like Mac OS don't let you share shift state. So if you hold shift on one keyboard and press A on the other, it will still be lowercase a. And that's like a limitation of the operating system. There's nothing in the USB HID spec that says, oh, they have to do this.
Yeah.
But it's still really frustrating because it's like, I wanted to plug in 2 keyboards. Now that's like the basic level. The more complicated level is, okay, I have a function key. I have a function layer in my keyboard. How the heck are you supposed to get one keyboard's function layer to get to the other? Right? So if I had like a QMK keyboard and a KLL keyboard, how do I pass function layer state to that other keyboard? Right? And that's kind of what HID.io is the ability to say, I want to send information from one keyboard to the computer, do something with it, and be able to send it to another keyboard. Right? And along this allows you to do some really neat things. So another frustrating part is layouts. So if you live in the US, Canada, and you use like a standard US ANSI keyboard, it's like, oh yeah, you just program a keyboard, it's no big deal. But if you live, I don't know, in Europe, nobody prints your keycap legends the way you want them. All your keys are in the wrong spots. Like,
Wrong spots.
yeah. And it's, I feel your pain. Don't get me wrong. This is keyboard firmware designers, keyboard creators. They're not hating on Europe. It's this retardedness of USB HID and how it defines it. So all a keyboard does, it says, you sent position 40. And I think it's like 43 is A on a US ANSI keyboard. But that's all the operating system. The operating system has said, oh, they're in US layout mode. That's why when you set your locale, it just figures out which keyboard you are. Or if you plug your keyboard into a Mac, it says, oh, press the key right of left shift and left of right shift. It's using these heuristics to say, oh, this is the kind of keyboard it is, to like figure out which locale it should be. So HID.io is a way of saying, oh, I can just ask what that is. And then say, oh, if you wanted to type I don't know, a sentence, you could actually construct the sentence in actual characters and send them using the layout that they need, because not every layout, like US, doesn't have accents.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can't actually send those characters. Or, I don't know, I want to send a Korean symbol. So one way of doing this would say, oh, change your computer to say, switch quickly to the Korean layout, or even better, have the keyboard send UTF-8 or Unicode character. So you could send your poop emoji from your symbols. So you can have all your sweet emojis to diss all your gamer friends and just sort of send them directly. Because if you've looked at any touchscreen keyboard, all phones, you can do these. Why can't you do it on a physical keyboard? And Hit.io is a way of doing this. Like right now, we have no way of doing this unless someone writes a piece of software that interprets the A key does something. Right.
So because it has all the support combined with everything we've just talked about, I could have 50% press of a key, A, 75% of the press of the key, A with the accent, and that's handled on the firmware side.
Yeah, it's basically the firmware would say, I want to send these things, and then it would send, instead of sending it directly through USB HID, it would say, okay, I'm going to send it through this other channel, through Hit.io, which has its own kind of protocol of sending stuff. Like, okay, Hit.io, I know the computer doesn't understand this HID stuff, so do it this way for me. So that first A would probably be sent through normal USB, because more things will support it and it will screw up less applications. Because if you, I don't know, running your DOS games, probably is not going to support UTF-8, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just probably not. So you're going to make the attempt first with the local layout. So that's like, oh, you're using Quartz from Germany. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm going to attempt using the Quartz layout first. And then if it's like, oh, you're in Quartz, but you wanted to send a yen symbol, right? I would then say, okay, I probably should just use UTF-8 directly, rather than having to switch to Japanese to get to it, right? Yeah, so yes, you can do all of those things.
So essentially, if you're a European, you can use an ANSI keyboard and have access to every single accent or weird character you want.
Including Elvish.
So that's great to hear. That's amazing, because they have all those accents, they have all that, and all that is essentially handled on the firmware side through Hit.io, but programmed and configured through KLL. Then, right?
Yes.
And that's how they talk to each other, but completely separate.
So Hit.io, I've purposely separated it as a project out. So most of the KLL is under the keyboard kind of GitHub page. Hit.io is under its own thing, and I purposely have done this because you may have noticed on the Kickstarter I have mentioned QMK support for Keystone.
Yes.
So I may not do like as much of like the AI stuff for QMK to like push it in, but I'll definitely have normal, if we manage to get that stretch goal, make sure that QMK will load on a Keystone, and more importantly, QMK will work with Hit.io. So the thing about Hit.io is there's nothing that says you have to have an analog keyboard to use Hit.io, right? Yeah. And so the whole idea is to be able to support as many keyboards as possible. To say like, how do you get keyboards in general to do things on your computer, right? Like, do you want to like write some sort of fancy macro script that like records a Twitch stream? So if you know how to like program, like you could set up hooks for this, right? Because right now we're currently limited for macros on things that the keyboard can do, and which are keystrokes, right? So if you think of things like, I don't know, your smart home funniness, I don't know, but like you could hook up into your smartphone by just like, or smart home things by saying like, oh, I write this little program that hooks into my keyboard, and I have a host side macro A or 1. And it says, oh, when I press this, it like turns the lights off my house or opens my neighbor's garage door. So it's kind of the idea behind it, and I have been working on Hit.io for a long time. It's just I have so many things I work on, and it's you're
a very busy man. You're a very, very busy man.
And for those who are interested in programming things, it's hit.io is written in Rust, which is one of the fancy new languages. So it's a little bit nicer to work with. And another point, this is something that a slight jab at the way sort of Windows programming and a lot of plugins. I don't know how people are familiar with plugins. So plugins are this like code where you have a program that loads this library. Okay, if you write a shitty library, it crashes your program. All right, this is why drivers crash your computer.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So like you have a crappy driver and it crashes. That's why you get the blue screen of death. Right. That's kind of what happens. So hit.io is written in a way such that there are no plugins. You actually write over what they call an RPC interface, or they're separate processes. So it says, oh, there's hit.io. You start your little program and it says, oh, hit.io is there. You connect to it and you can do stuff. But if hit.io crashes, your program doesn't crash. If your program crashes, hit.io doesn't crash. So it allows you to interact with as many as you want. It's a very kind of nuanced thing, but it's done on purpose to say like this is no one's perfect, whether it's some other vendor supporting hit.io or hit.io itself or whatever hit.io is trying to talk to. Like if there's like a keyboard that for some reason like caused it to crash because it was sending all this garbage data, it's like one thing in the whole chain shouldn't bring down the whole house of cards.